Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Boozer. I'd like to welcome you to today's CUGC user share with the State and Local Government Special Interest Group. We are going to be talking about a case study with the Washington State DOT and their NetScaler implementation. Just if you're not a member of the state and local government like SIG, I'd like to just let you know that it's a great group to be a part of. It's like-minded individuals can come together and talk about your use case scenarios, best practices. We have forums, there's a blog, and I'd like to encourage you all to join if you're not already a member. And to join the state and local government SIG, you just need to go to mycugc.org and look under the community section where it says view join user SIG groups. Our format today is a discussion and interview with questions from the audience. I'd like you to use the question area in the GoToWebinar control panel to type in your questions, and we will get to those during the presentation. Also let you know that today's presentation is being recorded, and we will post it on mycugc.org, and you will also receive an email link to the recording probably sometime tomorrow. All right, with us on the call today, we have Aaron Hutchinson, who's with the Washington State DOT, and he is the SIG leader, along with, oh my gosh, Justin Crabtree. That's not Justin Crabtree, that's John Flanagan. I'm so sorry, John. I'm going to fix that for you. John is with the Rowan County government in North Carolina. He's also a SIG leader. And we have Andy Whiteside. He is Charlotte CUGC local group leader. So, without further ado, I will toss this over to our guys to get us started. And there you go. Andy, Aaron, and John, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Hey, John, we'll get a chance to clean that up real quick. So, John Flanagan, right, the lead Citrix administrator at Wake County, North Carolina, right? Wake County government.
Yeah, I'm with Wake County.
Yeah.
I do apologize.
That's okay. It's probably from the last one because I think we did have someone from Rowan County last time. So
we did. Yeah.
We did, and I'm so sorry, John.
No worries.
So, John, do you want to tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll jump over to Aaron and get his take and get his background? Sure.
So I am the lead engineer responsible for the Citrix platform at Wake County government.
So AKA the Citrix guy?
I am the Citrix guy. That's what most people call me. We're a team of two. I tend to handle everything infrastructure and project related because my background is in infrastructure and virtualization. We do have a sysadmin that works with me. He tends to manage down and handle all of our customer-facing issues. Our organization as a whole, we're right at about 5,000 employees, serving a county of about 1 million people. Our Citrix implementation, not as old as some. We're actually just starting year 3 of being in production with it. Our largest footprint is in human services. They've gone completely paperless with the practice management suite at public health. And that's served up to the users completely through Citrix, and we've just started to build off of that. To this day, we're primarily still mostly applications. We've started working our way into virtualizing desktops. We've targeted most of the public kiosks in the county, so we have roughly 200 endpoints that the public uses. And after we make the migration from Lotus Notes to Exchange, we're going to start targeting users' workstations.
Okay, great. So I would say you fashion, I can't believe the dog's barking at this very moment. I'd say you fashion yourself more as a Zen desktop guy, but you do spend some time on the NetScaler gear, right?
We do. We do have a NetScaler implementation that we use for obviously load balancing within Citrix and some other services within the county, and we are using the application gateway for external access.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks, John. Aaron, so you are kind of our guest of honor. My hope here in this online forum, this online session, is that you guys will have a good discussion between two peers, and with the folks listening, chiming in with questions along the way, we'll be able to keep Aaron busy and pick his brain on what they're doing at the state of Washington. So Aaron, you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So my name is Aaron Hutchinson. I work for the Washington State Department of Transportation, and I have worked here for just over 10 years. About 9 years ago, I spearheaded a project to replace our aging load balancing infrastructure, and what we decided to use was a Citrix NetScaler. And so it's started out as just a content switch for us for our main public website, which serves about 200,000 users, unique users per day on a normal day. When we get inclement weather in the Seattle area, it can skyrocket. I think our largest day we've had 800,000 unique visitors to the page, and our older infrastructure just wasn't capable of handling that much. So I spearheaded the project to replace it, and like I said, we chose a NetScaler, and the NetScaler's been great over the last 9 years, I think it is, and we've it's grown to become such an integral part of almost everything that we do here now that it grew from one set of two to now we have two sets of two and an internal one. And so yeah, it's been a great ride, and I really enjoy talking about how we use them and what we use them for. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, that's good. I had so many questions I already want to start asking you, but to go back to your background a little bit, are you traditionally a route switch guy, a networking guy, or are you an application? What's been your history, and what do you kind of lean towards? Because that's always the question when you start talking NetScaler. You got to know networking, but you really got to understand applications.
Sure. Actually, my background is as a server admin. So that's what my job here at the Department of Transportation started out as, and it's still that. I still do a lot of server administration stuff. I mainly do IS and web server administration, and then this just kind of was a logical step forward from administering web servers to then administering the front end to those web servers. So yeah, I'm a server admin that kind of got thrown into a NetScaler admin position, but they go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're a server guy that understands applications, and that's really key here. I know when I first started working at Citrix, I first saw a NetScaler for the first time, and I was like, that's not me, that's a networking device. And then over time, I've learned, no, that's closer to me, server infrastructure guy than it is the networking guys. And a lot of times, you start talking NetScaler to a networking guy, and they really don't. They know how to connect it, but that's kind of where the story ends. They don't really know what it's all about.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about what exactly you guys are doing with the NetScaler. When you mentioned a few minutes ago that the older infrastructure wasn't able to keep up, what was the limitation? Was it just the transactions that it was capable of doing? Was it the technology was limited? What forced you guys to move forward other than the age of the older equipment?
Well, so yeah, age definitely had something to do with it. It had been around for, from what I understand, a few years before I arrived. And so, like I said, when we have inclement weather on the west side of the state of Washington, we get hit hard because our primary goal is to provide traveler information to the traveling public. And so when it snows in the Seattle area, people want to know what the best way to get to where they need to go is. And so we get a lot of traffic to our website during inclement weather, and so we had our old infrastructure, and it was basically just a content switch. That's all it did, and it would, during these inclement weather sessions, it would get bogged down, and it would end up just dropping all connections and essentially rebooting itself. And so that was unacceptable to us, and so we needed to come up with another solution that wouldn't have that effect on the customers trying to use our website.
Okay, so it's really the throughput of the thing front-ending the website, and was it if it was old, first of all, if it was old, then there's a conversation around supportability and cost of maintaining something that's old, right? And then was it primarily the processing capabilities of it Are we talking? We're not talking SSL here. We're just talking straight HTTP port 80 type stuff.
Right. These are just HTTP transactions.
Okay. So the lean towards the NetScaler to replace the old stuff, was it caching, compression? What was or just pure transaction, processing capabilities? What was the technical, reason why you had to move forward? What did it? Where did it choke? What was the choking point of the resource limitation? Do you know?
Exactly the resource limitation on the previous hardware, I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, it was shortly after I arrived here that we started this process to replace it, since we had seen that it was starting to not keep up with the demand that the public was putting on our website. So we looked at all the options out there from various vendors, and we ultimately decided to go with the NetScaler for a number of reasons. One, the GUI was really intelligent, and it's really easy to learn what's happening and to see what's happening and to go through that process. And we also had some other factors, like we were using the secure access, what was it? The gateway.
The CAG, what we used to call CAG.
Yeah. And that was on a server that we hosted. And so the NetScaler gave us the ability to move that off of a server and onto the NetScaler for our XenApp environment at the time.
Yeah, and for the Citrix admins on the call here, they're probably yelling at me because I probably got that wrong. What you're talking about there is the Citrix Secure Gateway was running on an IIS box, brokering, proxying traffic, and you were able to replace that with a NetScaler.
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned the UI, right? So how long ago was this again that you guys implemented the NetScaler?
This was probably 2008, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually, the UI has come a long way, and it's gotten more and more intuitive over the last probably 2 or 3 years. So, that's probably even been a huge step forward.
It's amazing to look back at the old Java UI and then look at the HTML5 UI of today and think, how did I even get through that back then?
Right. Okay. Is it just that website, or do you have other applications that you're also managing as part of the NetScaler, that the NetScaler sitting in front of the organization, and maybe even yourself?
Yeah. So it's come a long way. We have 2 load balanced NetScalers that have a public website, and we also have an internal NetScaler that we do all of our internal applications through, and we even have a NetScaler that front ends our PCI DSS environment that is a PCI compliant, or in a PCI compliant state. So it's really grown to encompass almost everything here.
So Aaron, why was the decision made to have separate NetScalers to load balance the internal VIPs versus the external? Was there a reason that was done as opposed to having one hosting all of it?
So we originally only had the one HA pair, and it was a set of 12,000s, and it did both internal and external applications. And then when hardware lifecycle came around and the 12,000s were no longer supported and we needed to upgrade them, we decided to split apart both internal and external portions of it so that we wouldn't have to bring down all of our internal stuff if we needed to upgrade the public-facing set. So it allowed for separation of duties, I guess you could say, between the physical and public-facing traffic and the internal traffic.
Are you using the VPX anywhere, or are they all physical NetScalers?
Yeah, our internal NetScaler is a VPX, and the main public ones are our physical devices, and our PCI environment actually started on a VPX and then transitioned to a physical device.
So you mentioned that you have a PCI environment. Can you go into a little bit of detail on why that's separate out from everything else, and kind of give us an idea of what you're hosting on there and what the configuration differences are?
Sure. The reason we separated it out is because PCI has very strict requirements on what can and cannot be shared, and essentially nothing can be shared with any non-PCI resources. So we made the decision to start with a VPX, and it hosts a application that was developed in-house to reserve reservations on the Washington State Ferries system. So you can go there, put in your credit card number, and you can make a reservation for a sailing on the ferries. And so we made the decision to go with a VPX because we didn't know how much traffic would be generated by this one application that's in our PCI environment. And so we put in a VPX. I think we started at a VPX 100, and we quickly noticed that at the time this was running NetScaler 10.5, and we couldn't keep up. The VPX just couldn't handle the number of SSL transactions that we were seeing for that app on busy days when we would, say, release the summer sailing schedules. And so we had to upgrade that to a physical appliance which was capable of handling many, many, many more SSL transactions than the VPX was.
Hey, there was a question in here around exactly what you're talking about, and so I guess depending on timing, Aaron, are you up to date on the SDX models and how you can have virtual but yet have physical pass-through of the SSL offload? Where does SDX fit either in your current or in your future, if at all?
Yeah, so we've looked at SDX appliances, but it's not cost feasible for us at this point, since we only have the two that front it, and then the virtual, and then the other one. So we have looked at the SDX platform, and it is a great platform if you host many NetScalers. We haven't found a need for it with the 4 that we currently have.
Yeah, so you guys really have this one app that you're taking care of primarily, right? So, with the SDX, you can give different administrators different access to different NetScalers. You can front end different workloads, but in your case, it's pretty much a single thing that you're taking care of. So the MPX still makes a lot of sense.
Yep, that's exactly it.
All right, got some questions coming in here. I'm trying to man both. John, do you have anything else while I try to get caught up on these questions and bring them up?
Sure. So, you mentioned the going through the PCI compliance process, and I think that's something that most of us, whether you're in government or not, need to be aware of or have gone through. Can you kind of go into any details on what kind of changes you had to make to the configuration to meet PCI compliance, if there were any kind of specific ciphers that you had to disable, or which versions of TLS or SSL?
Yeah, so we don't use SSL at all. It's all TLS 1.1 and 1.2, and that, the NetScaler makes that super simple by just a checkbox, which is really nice. We also only use Diffie-Hellman elliptical curve ciphers for that site. The biggest change is running the web app firewall in front of that application. Mm-hmm. Because it's considered a PCI compliant web app firewall, it makes things a lot simpler than running a separate web app firewall in front of them.
So that's one of the questions. So you are using App Firewall in front of this site, and so what are the primary things you're looking for it to prevent from happening? And maybe you don't want to tell us.
Well, it's like, I think it's like any, I would say, I guess I only have experience in this one application and PCI stuff. So I believe that it's like any other PCI compliant app, as you just don't want people to submit stuff to the application that it shouldn't, right? So one thing we check for a lot is as form field consistency and things like that. So again, we put on all the other stuff, you know, like DDoS attacks, and we block all of that stuff. But I mean, again, it's like I believe any other PCI compliant application would be, just the standard things that we would check for.
Yeah, that's good. A question, so, you know, historically, when we talk App Firewall, there's a conversation around, look, in a PCI environment specifically, you have to either pay somebody to come look at your code every so often and make sure it's right, or you put an App Firewall in front of it, or you do both. In y'all's situation, are you doing both, or does the App Firewall provide enough security that you don't have to have the audits of the back-end systems?
We do still do audits of the back-end systems. We figured that since, you know, we have the NetScaler already there and App Firewall there, that there's no reason we wouldn't do them as well, because the App Firewall is not an excuse for poor coding.
Right.
So we still do both. We run the App Firewall and we do back-end code checks.
Okay. There's a question, and maybe you guys answered it. I don't know if you guys realized, but I had to go step away for a second to make the dog stop barking, as you can imagine. It's like that guy on Facebook that has the video where he's working from home. The model that you're using. So you mentioned a while ago 300,000 concurrent users at one time. What are you guys using for the MPX side?
So for our public website, we use 10,500s, and our PCI is an 8,005.
Okay. And
they're all running NetScaler 11.1 currently.
Yeah, that's another good conversation too. Which version are you on? But at the 10,000 series, was it 10,000? I'm sorry, you said the 8,000 and the 10,000, correct?
Yeah.
At 3,000, so you're not doing SSL on that, so you don't have to worry about that piece. What kind of utilization are you seeing? Is that thing working about, you know, what percentage utilization are you seeing on the peaks?
So our peaks, since it's mostly HTTP traffic currently, we really don't tax it at all. I think on a peaks I see about 10 or 12% packet processor utilization. The PCI 8005 is about 50% because it's all SSL transactions. So yeah, our public-facing pair don't get taxed very hard at all. We probably overbought for what we need, but it's better to have too much bandwidth than not enough.
Right. Okay. All right. So I get that you guys have you know, the public-facing website, and maybe I just, you know, there are other parts of the organization that have other use cases for NetScaler beyond this public-facing website and the PCI. What else are you guys using it for as an organization? Not necessarily that you support, but as an organization.
Sure. Yeah. It's become integral in almost everything. I mean, we load balance, Exchange, in all of the different regions of Washington State. We have on-premise, it's Skype for Business now, but started as Link 2013, and that's actually rather unique in that we load balance our edge servers and our on our public-facing pair, and then we load balance our front-end servers on our internal VPX. So for Skype for Business, it goes from a physical NetScaler to a virtual NetScaler to the back-end servers. Which is kind of a unique process. And let's see, what else do? We load balance SharePoint through it. We load balance our document manage stuff through it.
And when you say through it, are these different NetScalers than the ones we've been talking about up to this point, or is it the same set?
No, it's the same set. It's just different virtual servers on the NetScaler. So it's either going through our public 10.5 pair or through our internal VPX. It's just, it does nearly everything that has to do with an application goes through a NetScaler at some point in our organization.
Well, and that's really the story, right? Is the NetScaler is kind of a kind of the Swiss Army knife of appliances that can be used to front end just about every application somewhere along the way.
Yep.
Yeah. What's your team look like that supports the NetScaler specifically?
Well, that's rather funny. So I work technically in the infrastructure services group, and on our team there are about 14 people that support servers and infrastructure in general. I support the NetScalers. It's just me.
Just you, right? That's always good. So you put in NetScalers not to have a single point of failure, but then Aaron becomes a single point of failure.
It makes getting back from vacation very interesting.
I bet it makes going on vacation very interesting, right? Hey, John, anything you want to bring up? Any questions that you have based on the conversation? And I'll go check the questions in the chat room.
Actually, we've had a couple of good ones in the chat room. Looks like there's some interest in SharePoint. Can you go into any extra details on that? If there were any kind of extra headaches getting SharePoint load balanced behind the NetScalers? Was there anything beyond just setting up a VIP and load balancing the service, or did you guys run into any roadblocks and issues along the way of getting that implemented?
Yeah, so there weren't any specific roadblocks that I can remember running SharePoint. One thing we did do is we run it behind it's a content switching virtual server now. It used to be just straight load balancing, but we were going to upgrade SharePoint. I can't remember what version since I don't do SharePoint, but another group on my team does, and they were wondering if we could switch over, I guess, sites, that might be the right term, in SharePoint one at a time. And so during this upgrade process, they would tell me that they had just switched over a site and asked me to, switch the content switching rule from the old servers to the new servers. So that made upgrading SharePoint a lot easier than taking all the sites down at once and doing this mass upgrade and then bringing them all back up under the constant DNS entry for SharePoint that all of the customers in DOT have come to use on a daily basis. But as for problems in setting it up, I don't recall any, no.
Okay. Yeah, you hit on something really good there too that we've found with our NetScaler or NetScalers here is they do make upgrading the back-end applications or systems that we're load balancing really easy because you can just on the fly just switch the content switching rules. What are you guys doing for monitoring? Or do you have anything special set up, or did you have any issues getting that integrated in with your existing monitoring system?
So we have a couple. We have our front-facing pair monitored through. I can't remember the software right now, and we have a. Man, I'm drawing a blank on what the old NetScaler monitoring software was. Shows you how often I go to it. We have monitoring servers set up, but we don't. I'm looking into MOS right now, Management and Analytics System Software, whatever the S stands for in MOS, to monitor the NetScalers more closely. Right now we're kind of in a budget crunch, and so the budget's not there for the, I think, 300 virtual servers that we have. So that's where that part stands. It is on my to-do list to implement MOS. It's, like I said, right now just sort of a budget constraint. Yes, Command Center, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you guys doing any kind of log collection using Splunk or SolarWinds or anything like that, or?
So we use Sentinel for log collections, actually. we use that in both our PCI environment and our corporate environment for collecting logs, and it's just log to Sentinel for the log collections.
Hey, so Aaron, we talked about the old solution and where it was kind of bottlenecking on you. Regarding the new implementation, let's say for the public-facing website specifically, what do you get a lot of value out of? Is it caching? Is it compression? Is it TCP optimizations? What does the NetScaler do for that site that you would call out and point out to somebody in that scenario that's been very valuable?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because a lot of what people come to look at on our site are traffic camera images, and they upgrade frequently. Like, some of them upgrade every minute, some of them are every 2 minutes, some of them are every 5 minutes, and we have thousands of them around the state. And that's really what gets hit hardest, is the traffic site that people are clicking on the little cameras on the map and looking and seeing what traffic is like through there. So those images get hit really hard, and so I set up a caching policy to cache all these images for 30 seconds, because if we did it any longer, it might not update when the image updates. So we cache all of those images for 30 seconds, and that takes so much load off of the back-end servers that they can now keep up with all of the traffic that we get.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a very true core NetScaler property that you kind of lose sight of when you start talking about App Firewall and all these other great things. It's that basic thing that it did in the beginning that probably means the most, at least to that public-facing site, and taking the workload that would have to be handled by many, many more back-end servers and allowing you to kind of scale that down and let the NetScaler do its magic on the caching.
Yep.
So, hey, everybody, I don't know why I didn't say this earlier, but I put in the chat window, I put the success story that Citrix wrote up regarding the use case here that Aaron and team went through. And so, John, do you have anything in the chat window that you want to bring up before I kind of start going through that article a little bit and maybe quizzing Aaron on some of the things he pointed out and trying to talk through some of these things a little more?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead.
So, Aaron, if I go look at the article and it talks about key benefits, I mean, you've talked about spikes. We've talked about that several times, and downtime. That's clearly one of the benefits of this. You have one here's a single line that says making major Microsoft migrations transparent to users. What does that mean?
Yeah, that was kind of around that whole SharePoint, which the major upgrade from SharePoint, because we couldn't. Again, I don't remember the exact version we were going from to. I think it was 2013 or 2015, whatever the more recent version of SharePoint is. But allowing the SharePoint team to upgrade one, I think they're called collection at a time, without changing the URL to the customer was a huge benefit to them.
Yeah, I bet so. I bet not having that impact was, you take it for granted, but that's when it happens and it happens big, right? And you need that kind of bridge for sure.
Yep.
Okay, this is the one I'm probably most interested in that you have listed as a key benefit. It says generating new revenue streams by enabling on-site advertising. We haven't talked about that yet on the call, right?
No, we haven't. Though this was a really fun thing to do with the NetScaler. So, the Washington State Legislature sent us a mandate to explore new revenue options, and they wanted to put website advertising on our main website. There's a big problem with that in that the federal government does not allow advertising on any .gov domain. You can't put advertising there, they just don't allow it. So we ended up purchasing WSDOT.com to go along with WSDOT.wa.gov, and we contracted with an advertising partner, and we were thinking about just putting redirects or just completely redoing the site under WSDOT.com, but the business higher-ups I guess you could say, didn't want to abandon the brand that they had built on WSDOT.wa.gov, right? So instead of abandoning WSDOT.wa.gov to go to WSDOT.com, they said, okay, we're going to put advertising on these specific traffic pages, and we'll just redirect them from WSDOT.wa.gov to WSDOT.com. So, oh yeah, there should be an advertisement at the top there.
You can see my screen over here.
If you notice that you went from WSDOT.wa.gov on the home page to a WSDOT.com, and it's completely seamless, and you shouldn't notice any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't. But okay. So this is what you're talking about here, the ability to throw a little advertising on there and make money via this vehicle, right?
Yeah, so that, I don't know the exact numbers of how much we've made over the last couple of years with this, but it's proven to be beneficial and worth the time that we put into it to put those ads on the page. You can see one at the top there.
Well, that's good, right? So let's be real here. Everything we do kind of comes back to money, right? So we need to make sure we are either saving money or making money, and in this case, you guys are doing both.
Right, exactly.
Hey, I do want to point out for everybody that it looks like it's kind of rainy and dreary in Seattle today.
It's Western Washington in the spring.
I've only been there twice, and I tell you, both days I was there, it was beautiful. It was, 75 degrees and perfectly sunny, blue skies. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Every time I've been there, it's been great.
If you come between the 4th of July and about September, it's usually like that. But any other time, it's gray and raining, probably.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go back over to the chat window here. There's the questions. It says, can you qualify or quantify the performance level you've seen of the web traffic now that NetScaler does the load balancing? And I guess, do you have a way to quantify and qualify how much better it is than before? I mean, how do you guys measure that? How do you come back and say, look, I told you it was better, and here's the numbers?
Yeah. So when we first did our project, I remember trying to quantify it, and it was hard. I think we saw something like, at the time, I want to say like 200% increase in users that could browse the web page at any given time, and that's actually gone up with the more recent hardware that we've gone to. Like I said, our big day was about 800,000 people. That's been our biggest day on record so far, and we had absolutely no problem handling that much traffic. A couple months ago, we had snow in Seattle, and we thought it would be a huge day, and it turned out to only be about 500,000 people, I think. But again, nobody ever said anything about the website being slow or not able to see any of the images they were looking for. So can I quantify it currently? I probably can't, but it's been a huge benefit.
Yeah, I'll just point out in the article you have here, it says 40% savings in bandwidth. So you guys, that was then. I don't know exactly what it is now, but you said that there's even greater density now in the hardware. But 40% savings in bandwidth is what you guys had pointed out in that article, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk through this a little bit. So you have Cisco and F5. They were at the table, and not to do any bashing on either of the others, but what did the NetScaler bring to the table? You've already talked about the UI, I guess. Let me ask you this. Okay, so you're a NetScaler guy, but you're an application guy to start with, not a route switch guy. Do you do everything at the CLI, or do you do it at the GUI?
It really depends. I started out doing everything through the GUI. More recently, I've switched to going through the CLI. There's some specific reasons for that. Our main website content switching VIP has something on the order of 350 rules, and so it gets a little bit slow to load in the GUI. So I've switched to binding and making rules for that through the CLI, and there's some stuff that just works better through the CLI. A lot of App Firewall stuff, especially for looking at rules that are getting blocked, you can only do through the CLI, and that's more the shell that's available on the NetScaler itself than probably the CLI. But yeah, a lot of stuff I do on the GUI, but again, there's some very specific stuff that can really save time going through the CLI.
Right. Yeah, I bet so. Once you get comfortable with it, you know how you know where the commands are buried, right, and how to find the right switches. Most of the hardcore NetScaler guys I work with, they just live in the CLI. I don't know if they're just trying to embarrass me that I can't, or they really do enjoy it. I think it's a little of both, to be honest with you. So let's talk about the competitive. So you guys were considering Cisco and F5 somewhere along the way. What was it that the NetScaler brought that the Cisco gear did not? If you remember.
Going back a long time there. So I don't remember what the offering for Cisco was called at the time. They had a content services switch a long time ago, and I think it was similar to what it just didn't provide the full range of functionality that NetScaler did. I mean, there's so much.
That's kind of a moot point, right? Because Cisco's kind of out of that business anyway. They've kind of decided that wasn't an area they really wanted to play in, and they're going to work with Citrix anyway on the NetScaler side.
Right.
All right, so let's beat up the other guy then. Let's not beat up the guy. Let's talk about the other guy. What was it about F5? Because F5's the other big player in this space. What was it that NetScaler gave you that you liked better?
It could have just been salesmanship. I didn't click with the salesman from F5 like I did from Citrix. I think that had a large part to do with it, and there was no benefit from going F5 over Citrix at the time. And like I said, this was like 9 years ago.
I can kind of jump in a little bit on this one because we actually are in both worlds here at Wake County. We have a lot going through Big IP or F5, and then we have NetScaler for Citrix and some other things that have been bolted on since that deployment. The big drivers for that with us were just how simple it is to manage, the performance, and just how tightly integrated it is with Citrix and securely delivering your applications through a public interface.
No, that's good. And if you're going to have XenApp, XenDesktop, like I think both of you guys have, then NetScaler, you can do that with F5, but NetScaler doing that keeps you, on the same team. It keeps you doing everything within the same vendor, and it really does make a lot of sense. I have lots of situations where they have F5 and they have NetScaler, and you easily could see where the NetScaler could step in and take over the F5 role, and even vice versa. But you wouldn't be living within the ecosystem and have that single throat to choke kind of thing. But it certainly happens in lots of places. So John, anything you want to ask Aaron before we start kind of going towards the finish line here and talk about what he wants to do next?
I think I'm good.
So Aaron, as it relates to NetScalers at Washington State, what's next?
So aside from the normal refresh that we're about to go through for hardware, since our 10.5s are end of lifing next March, in about a little over a year, we are looking to do Gateway for VDI to support HDX-ready Pi devices for our Emergency Operations Center. That will be, I'll be working on that in the coming months, which should be interesting. We have, like I said, an Emergency Operations Center here at headquarters that has about 30 machines that largely sit unused, and the manager of that recently mentioned that it's about $1,000 per workstation when those come new, and I was like, well, why don't we just replace them with Ready Pi devices that are $50 a piece, and we can bring up a XenDesktop environment to support them all. And he was thrilled with that kind of savings. So that's what's next on the docket for me, along with enhancing, whatever people need that currently goes through a NetScaler. That's where I'm at.
Okay. So that's the use case for NetScaler, and you kind of stole my thunder on the next question. Now asking overall, what's the organization looking to do with Citrix? And so it sounds like you guys have a virtual desktop. I don't like to call it VDI. I like to call it virtual desktop because it's more encompassing. But it sounds like that's one of the next things you guys are looking at is maybe trying to do a desktop replacement type of program with either thin clients or Pis or some type of thinner, more cost-effective device.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned it last year after Synergy when they brought it up, and it came around again within the last month here, and I was like, hey, this is still an option, and actually it's out now, so we can pilot this program and show that it's a cost savings over actual workstations. And
yeah, that's always been, there's even some software thin clients that can do, but yeah, the story is there. The endpoint becomes more and more manageable and cheaper, and all of a sudden the virtual desktop, which is a little expensive, but is offset by the cost of this cheaper endpoint. Now you've got a story that the accountants can understand, and of course NetScaler will play a big role in that, both internally and externally. So it certainly ties in here. And it goes back to my comment a while ago around the F5 versus Citrix. If you know you're going to do virtual desktops, if you know you're going to do virtual apps, it makes a lot of sense. Hey, I've got a question from the questions panel here, and it's an awesome question. It's one of my favorite things to challenge people on. And here we go. How often does your organization look and evaluate updating the firmware on your NetScaler appliances?
Oh man, put me under the gun on that one.
That's right.
Yeah, probably not as often as we should. So with the exception of our PCI environment, since we're required by PCI standards to, if there's a security patch or something put out for the product, we have to implement it within 30 days. So that definitely gets updated more frequently than, say, our public-facing pair or our internal VPX. Usually, it's probably goes way past what it should for the other two, but I like I said, I'm currently on 11.1 on all of them. Though, when I find a revision or a build that really works for us, unless there's a good reason to go to another build, I'll stay on that build of that firmware version for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the way you're dancing around giving me a number. What do you think? Is it once a, and maybe is it once a year? Is it once every? So my personal preference is every 6 months you evaluate going to the latest stable code. You should do that every 6 months. Do you think yours is every 6 or every 2 years?
It's probably about every year. I don't think it's as frequently as 6 months. Again, with the exception of our PCI environment, that, like I said, I get emails on when there's a security alert for Citrix products, and we evaluate them and implement them much sooner in that case.
Yeah, and that's security drives that, and of course you want to be as secure as possible, which means you chase the latest version without hurting yourself, right? You always have. So of course now Scott's calling me out. He's asking me what the latest stable code is, and based off top of my head and what I've seen, I always pretty much go back one version, the latest version of the version prior to now, the latest build. Let me say that right. The latest build of the version prior to the latest version. So, I was just kidding about calling me out, but so yeah, I think 11.1. And to be quite honest, I always just go to my NetScaler guys and ask, what they think the latest is. But yeah, the latest supported. So I kind of have to lean on my team to tell me what they think the latest one is. But it's certainly, as I'm dancing around this, pointing out that it's a judgment call, and you want to be on something that you feel stable with. And I think every 6 months, unless it's a really high secure environment, then you're probably looking at maybe evaluating it once a month and then making a decision on what to do based on the security write-ups on the version that you're considering.
Yeah, and so when new firmware comes out, like major versions, I try to stay away from the initial builds. I've found that they are not always the most stable. So like when 11.1 came out, I didn't immediately jump on 11.1 for our production boxes. I think I waited 2 or 3 builds until 49, whatever it is. Because yeah, I'd like to see a couple of builds come out before I jump in and take the plunge.
You know, you've said production a couple times, and that every time you say it, I always want to ask the question. All right, so what does your lab NetScaler environment look like? Do you have one? Do you have a test bed? Is it physical? Is it virtual? What do you do to test and evaluate, you know, firmware updates and changes you want to make without having to do it in production?
Yeah, so we do have a test virtual device that I put new firmware on just to test and see if it's working. It's not anything special. I think it's just a VPX1, the one that they give you for free to test stuff out.
Right.
And it's literally, can I load the firmware on it? Does it function the way I think it should? And then I'll try, you know, running one small website behind it to see if everything works out as planned.
Well, I'm glad you said that, right? Because we have the NetScaler Express Edition, which is the 5 meg standard version that's unsupported, and we have what you just pointed out, which is like the Developer Edition, which is the 1 megabit version. Is that Platinum, or is that what comes with that? What edition is on that?
I believe it's Platinum. All of the NetScalers that we run are Platinum, so I'm pretty sure that we stayed with Platinum on that one as well.
Yeah, I don't know if what you get from Citrix it matches up to which edition you own, or is it always Platinum? That's a good question.
Well, yeah. So there's like Enterprise and Platinum editions, and we started out on Platinum and have never switched to Enterprise. I'm not totally sure if there would be a reason to.
Mm-hmm. Well, Enterprise is actually lower than Platinum, so you wouldn't go that direction.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to look real quick. NetScaler VPX Express Developer Edition. So if you go out to your My Citrix and look under your downloads, you can get the Developer Edition, which I bet that is Platinum. I've never actually looked into it because I always run the Express Edition for things I'm doing, but I bet it is Platinum so that you can see all the features and evaluate them, and of course, you know, want to buy a Platinum one.
Right.
Okay, you know, George is pointing out it is Platinum, but it's limited to 1 megabit of throughput, not byte, but bit of throughput per second. So yeah, thanks, George. Okay, well, so I guess as we leave here, Aaron, is there anything else that if you were sitting on the other side of this conversation, if you were in John's seat or you were my seat, or if you were, you know, one of the individuals listening to this webinar, is there anything you would want to make sure you got across that we haven't you know, pulled out of you?
You know, I just, like I said, I love talking about everything that it does here. It can solve so many problems. I actually had a developer tell me the other day that I quote unquote saved his life because of a simple redirect that I did on the NetScaler that allowed his app to work the way he thought it should work. But it's such a great device that can make people's lives so much easier when it comes to, you know, enterprise services.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get away with marketing NetScalers or life-saving devices, but makes a good story anyway.
I don't think they float too well.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, hey John, any parting things that you would like to bring up regarding this conversation, or is there anything else that you would like to, you know, kind of get out there as far as, you know, you have the platform, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good.
Okay, well, Aaron, I really appreciate it. You know, we just spent an hour talking about NetScalers, which if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have not thought was possible. But as you know, your story tells, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot we can do with it. It's a very valuable appliance. It can save lives. So that pretty much says it all right there. Stephanie, do you want to kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, just one sec. Let me pull up my slide here. Yeah, so I just want to thank everyone for coming to the presentation today. I want to thank Aaron and John, and I'm so glad I got your slide right. I really do apologize. If you were coming to Synergy, I will buy you a beer. And thank you, Andy, for running the conversation and asking all these questions, and I think it was a really great discussion. I'd like to encourage all of you to come to mycugc.org and join the SIG if you're not a member already. Check out our forums, check out our upcoming webinars, and of course you can follow us and the state and local government SIG on Twitter. The address is on your screen. And thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you again on another webinar here soon. All right.
Yeah, I guess it would be good to point out in the state and local government, if you guys are out there and you want to have certain conversations, post it into that forum so that you can let us know what you're interested in talking about, and we'll definitely evaluate it and try to get the content you guys want discussed on here. We've definitely committed to not making this about vendors and sales pitches. We want this to be deep dive technical. We want it to at least be Citrix technical conversations. So you guys let us know what you want to talk about.
Absolutely, we definitely encourage that. The more we hear from you about what you'd like to read about and hear about, the better. That always helps. So please don't be shy.
All right, guys, thanks for the time, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, y'all.